Welcome to Collaborate, the podcast that's reshaping real estate success. Whether you're a new agent striving for your first big win or a seasoned producer ready to break into the top 1%, Collaborate is your gateway to elite strategies, global networks, and industry-changing insights. Each episode delivers actionable advice straight from the top 1% of real estate professionals worldwide. This is where you learn the tools, tactics, and high-level techniques you need to scale your business and unlock financial freedom. Don't just survive, thrive. I'm your host, Trevor Bigg, three-time Icon Award winner with over $100 million in sales volume as a solo agent. And if you haven't been invited to the show yet, get your numbers up because this is a space reserved for the elite. Welcome back to another exciting episode of Collaborate. This is the premier podcast for ambitious agents committed to scaling their business. I'm your host, Trevor Bigg, and for those listening today, prepare to have your minds blown by this top producer's insights on maintaining high standards, working with distressed properties, and the value of community connections in real estate. The top producer I'm referring to is none other than LA's very own Cherryl Weaver. This is a deep-rooted Los Angeles agent with 20 plus years in the business. She's a recipient of the prestigious 5-star professional award. She's one of the few certified distressed property experts in her area, and she's built an unshakable personal brand leveraging community influence. Cheryl, such a pleasure to have you here today.
Well, thank you for having me. I look forward to it.
Fantastic. Cheryl, if you don't mind, give our audience a brief intro to who you are, where you're from, and I think most importantly, why you decided to pursue real estate in one of the most competitive cities in the country.
Well, first of all, I'm a native of LA. This is my home. This is where I lived my whole life. And I think because of that, I've also had the opportunity to see the different things that change the fabric of real estate here. I've had a number of things happen over my life and in the neighborhoods that I've lived in that I watched neighborhoods shape either from better to worse and really kind of figured out what elements really spark that change for a neighborhood. I've had quite a journey. My background actually is in theater, of all things. I have a major in theater. So I'm a theater kid. What can I say? But a lot of those skills have come in very, very handy between my marketing, my sales, my et cetera, when it comes to real estate. I got into real estate after 9/11 happened. My previous job, I was selling movies, like a lot of us here. And I was on a plane every 6 weeks. Well, after 9/11, planes weren't that much fun to be on anymore. So I started looking for something to sell closer to home. Just so happened homes were pretty close. So got into it, was trained by a real estate lawyer, which was a very, very interesting, different kind of education than most real estate agents get.
Well, different mechanic.
Yeah, I look at everything as, is this going to turn into a lawsuit? And how do I avoid that? So it's a really different way of looking at it. I also, early on in my career, ran into Joe Stump and his group By Referral Only. And it really resounded with me that I need to be a servant. I have to have a servant's heart as a real estate agent and really serve my clients. And if I serve my clients well, I should expect to have referrals and repeat business, etc. And sure enough, here I am, how many years later, and 95% of my business is repeat referral business. So that's how I've grown my business. Even in the hard times, I've taken a stance that I represent the homeowner. I don't represent banks. I don't represent, yes, I'll represent investors, but that's only investors to turn around and get a, person to buy a home that's their home. So that's kind of my quick journey.
I think your background in theater is amazing. You're not the first agent who I've talked to who has a background in theater, and you guys are not afraid to get in front of people. And I think that's a skill that a lot of people need.
Well, yes and no. My major in theater was not in acting. It wasn't in being on stage. It was being backstage. So I'm much more comfortable putting together programs and, setting up the stage for things for somebody else to shine. So, and hopefully that thing to shine is the home, not me.
For sure. I always try to find ways to how to, because you talk to so many people who are doing the complete polar opposite of real estate and somehow connected with real estate and took off. And so I always find it fun to hear the other side of how you brought theater into real estate.
Exactly. Of course. But you bring what you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So,
You've spent your entire life in Los Angeles. How has this connection with the community influenced your approach to real estate?
okay. So I am one that always wants to improve neighborhoods and improve the living situation of people.
Yeah.
I don't have any fear of going into, you might say, less connected, less developed neighborhoods. I myself moved into what they call the Northeast LA area of
Okay.
Los Angeles back in the 90s, which was little known, somewhat sketchy,
Exciting times.
but I found a really beautiful place to live and over the years helped develop it. Now, some people would call that development gentrification, and some people don't like that word, and some people do like that word. I look at gentrification as really truly what the core of it is, which is usually we have older people who have had their homes for a very long time, have had them run down, have not kept them up, have not had the resources nor the focus on doing that, and
Yeah.
other younger groups coming in, picking up those homes, making it their own, making it a better place to live. And along the way, yes, there's been some developers
Yeah.
who see that trend and want to take advantage of that trend too. And I don't see it as a negative. I see it as a positive. And when it gets rid of the gangs, I think we're all happy.
Well, 100%. 100%. Yeah. You know what? I had a few other questions I wanted to hit, but I'm going to jump right into the distressed property side of things because that's what I'm most interested in. I think a lot of people are too. What got you into deciding that you were going to be a certified distressed property expert and maybe explain to people what that even means?
I'm still trying to figure out what that means. So I don't know if I can really. In every market, there are multiple different types of homes.
Yep.
I learned pretty early on in my career what used to be in our market, and when I'm going to age myself here,
No,
when
no,
I
it's fine.
first got my first home, it was not unheard of. You went into a home, you bought it in whatever condition it was, you put your sweat equity into it, you made it better for the place that you want to live. And by doing that, you got a bit of a discount in buying it.
Yep.
With the onset of HGTV, and many other shows like it, the market changed because the first time home buyers are now, in my opinion, no longer willing to put in the sweat equity. That's not in their realm. That's not what they're looking at. They want a move-in ready. They feel like if I'm going to pay this amount of money for this
Yep.
home, I want to be able to move right in.
For sure.
Okay. I.e., in came, whenever there's a market that's created, in comes someone to fill that market. And in that market, especially in, like I said, the area I specialized in, which was the Northeast LA area, we
Yep.
had a ton of investors come in and say, hey, you don't want to buy it. And the condition is we'll buy it, we'll fix it up, we'll make it look the way you want, and then we'll sell it to you. So I got looking at so we have on the one hand, usually the older couple who's going to sell their home or that has died off or whatever. And we have the investor that's going to come in and buy it up and turn
Yep.
it over and make it a better place. So that became a big part of the market I was working in. And
Okay.
so I decided I better learn that pretty quickly as
For
well so I
sure.
could be a part of that market.
Yeah, well, I think it's an interesting part of the market because it's not necessarily a part of the market that people focus on or niche themselves out to per se. Yet you've built your whole career off of it. You know what I mean? So it's I think
Well,
pretty
not my
special.
whole career, but a portion of my career, yes.
Yeah. You work
And,
with.
it goes to, I'm going to say this for all real estate agents.
Yeah.
Whatever market you're in, the music plays and you have to dance that dance. So whatever dance you're doing, you better be whatever the music's playing. Because if you're, dancing to disco and it's a waltz, it's not going
Yeah.
to mesh. You know what I mean?
Trying to
So
two-step to heavy metal.
exactly, same kind of thing. So, if it's a two-step, you better learn the two-step and you better get in there and dance that dance and know that when the music changes, you have to change too.
Yep.
And that's so important. In my 20 some odd years career, that's the one thing I've had to learn is to change the dance that I'm dancing for the whatever music is playing in the market at that time. So,
Yeah. Put on whatever hat you have to at the time.
exactly.
Yeah. As a certified distressed property expert, you work with clients facing unique challenges, let's say. What are some of the key obstacles in working with distressed properties?
Well, depending upon who I'm representing,
Yeah.
if I'm representing, for instance, a buyer of a distressed property, I better do my due diligence, not only with inspections of the home,
Yep.
but of the title. And a lot of people, a
Mm.
lot of agents aren't really looking deep into, are there liens on the title? Is
Yeah.
there other, situation? Does the city have a lien against the property? Those can be very big costly mistakes that some distressed buyers can make.
Deal altering
Um,
mistakes for sure.
oh yeah. Oh yeah. In my area, another big, inspection. A lot of people don't or a lot of agents like, okay, well, I sent a general inspection. That's it should be okay. In my area, we have a lot of hillside property.
Yep.
So one of the major inspections I have my people do is the foundation, because there can be all kinds of hinky, weird things on a hillside with foundation. So,
Yep.
and that again is another major costly mistake that,
Yeah.
distressed property buyers can make as well.
Let's talk about sellers.
Sellers, it's more of a dance of them being able to move when they want to move
Yep.
and how they want to move. Again, most of the sellers are going to be elderly. They may or may not have family to help them move. Making the right deal where they have the time to either pack up their mementos,
Yeah.
etc., and take what's important to them. Also, I have many, many times made a deal where usually by the time they get to that age, they've got a lot of stuff.
Yes.
That's who we are. We collect
20
stuff.
years of
And
collectibles.
yeah, exactly. And, when the kids don't want them or the grandkids don't want them, it
Yep.
becomes a major burden. So I have many times made the deal where, okay, they buy the house with everything in it. And the buyer has to deal with all that stuff, which is so much easier because it's not an emotional thing. With the seller that's elderly, it's emotional. Like, how can I give up this poor thing that my kid and kid give? It's like
For sure.
really too emotionally hard for them.
Yeah. How do you handle situations that can be emotionally challenging for your clients?
Well, that goes back to my minor in college, which was psychology.
Okay.
So,
Layers to
um,
this onion.
yeah, lots of layers here.
Yeah.
Well, you get to my age and the layers are going to come whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
Um, I have a tendency to try and be very empathetic to my clients.
Yep.
I personally have been the trustee to a half a dozen people through my family and friends. So I understand from a very personal point of view what it's like going through those kind of end of life decisions, those taking a whole estate and trying to make something work with the estate. So I try to be very empathetic to their situation and understand they've probably been in this house for 40, 50 years. This
For
is
sure.
all they know.
Yep.
Is just scared beyond belief. So you have to really take baby steps with them and hold
Yeah.
their hand and make them know that you got their back no matter what.
Well, yeah, understanding that, if somebody's been in a house for 45 years, clearly they're not a huge fan of change. And so you're about to put them through something that they're not going to be comfortable with.
Right, right.
Yeah. Are
But
there
they
any?
probably have to. It's probably something there's usually some force from outside that
Yep.
is forcing them to do something they don't want to do, but they realize they have to do it.
Oh, for sure. Very rarely does somebody stay in a house for 45 years and then wake up one morning and go, you know what? Today's a good day to move.
No, but it's usually, hopefully, there are things, like what I try and find is there a new grandkid coming? Is there, and they're
Yeah.
somewhere outside, like I try and find the hope in it for them, because that's what really drives people to want to make this change happen, is to find the hope at the end of it.
Are there any common misconceptions about distressed properties that you'd like to clear up?
I think the most common misconception I see is from a marketplace of people who say corporations shouldn't own property.
Okay.
Um, and I hear that quite often. And it's almost like a feeling like the corporations are taking away the opportunities for the first-time home buyers. My experience is probably 8 times out of 10 that first-time home buyer does not have the financial wherewithal
Yeah.
to take on a project. Many of these homes are finally in a state where they almost can't even be financed.
Yeah.
So having a corporation with funds, with cash to come in and do exactly what they need to do, which is pick up an older home, improve it, make it better. It actually improves the neighborhood. It improves the people who are going to buy into that neighborhood, and it makes the neighborhood better. And by the way, it gives a first-time home buyer what they're looking for. Unfortunately, that's what the market's dictating.
Yeah.
So I know that there's a lot of angst out there about corporations buying homes, and I don't see it as a rampant, like, oh, they're buying all the homes. They're usually buying the distressed homes, the ones nobody else want,
Yeah.
because that's the only way they can make money.
So would you say then maybe previously first-time home buyers were a target market for these distressed homes and that's kind of faded out now?
Oh yeah, absolutely. A lot of people forget these, after World War II, a lot of our military came back to the United States and built their own homes from the ground up. There was no question. They
Sure.
just came back, they bought a piece of land, they got together with their buddies, and they built a house. I say that to a millennial today, and they're like, "What? Build my own house? Why would I build my own? That's somebody else's job. That's not my job."
Yeah.
So there used to be a different attitude. There used to be a different sense of skill sets, I think, in the marketplace and etc., that aren't there today.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that over time has changed. And I think the willingness to want to take on those projects have changed. I know for me, it's changed tremendously. My first home, I had no problem. I went out, my
Yep.
sledgehammers, my goggles, and whatever I needed to get what I needed done. I'm not doing that today. I'll go hire somebody, It's out that I've got a different skill set that I think is more focused and more important to focus on than slinging a hammer. But that's just the difference in my life and in the reality in a lot of people's lives.
Well, I think even if you look at the past 10 years, the expectations of skills has declined dramatically as far as, a first-time home buyer 10 years ago would have just been expected to be able to do the random things, fix the tap under the sink or, climb under there and resurface a toilet. They would be just expected to do these minuscule tasks, whereas nowadays something goes wrong and the thought is not even there to go grab a hammer. It's pick up a phone and see who I can call to get it fixed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think part of that, like I was just reading statistics this morning about the change of also who's buying homes.
Yep.
Even, let's say 20 years ago, the average age of a first-time home buyer was only like 28 or 29 years old.
Yep.
As of today, it's 38 years old. 39 years
Interesting.
old. So there's almost a 10-year difference
Sure.
between the age of a first-time home buyer from just like 20 years ago. The average age of people buying homes in the United States is 56. That's
Yeah.
the average.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
most 56-year-olds by this time are pretty established in theirs, and they're like, I'm not picking up a hammer. That's for the young kids. Let them do that. So
Well, then that's a good point too. If a lot of these home buyers are at a point in their life where they don't have the necessarily the need to have to go and do these chores themselves, then maybe that's why you're seeing a lot of these distressed homes. Because I mean, that has to do with the age too, right? Where if all these home buyers are now 38, 40 years old, well, like you said, they're at a point in their life where they can pick up the phone and call somebody rather than feeling like they've got to tackle all these chores themselves.
Right. Exactly.
You're huge in community. I mean, you're an LA native, you've been there born and raised, but you also contribute a portion of your commission to local nonprofits. Could you tell us more about this initiative and what inspired you to start it?
Well, giving back has been like part of my fabric of my life.
Yeah.
I don't know if, I mean, I can remember being in like junior high school and going with groups down to Mexico to deaf mute orphanages and contributing
Cool.
my time to working and, giving back there. So
Incredible.
giving back's always been a big thing for me. I feel, to some extent, I have been privileged in my life. I got a good education. I'm in a great country. I'm in a great city. And with that does for me does come responsibility. And that responsibility is to come back and give back. And just as I am empathetic with my clients, I am empathetic to other people's causes and other people's situations. So I have a plethora of nonprofits that I give back to and that I donate my time to, that all of them are near and dear to my heart. How's that?
How do you balance philanthropy with running a successful business all at the same time?
Well, they kind of go hand in hand. I meet a lot of my friends. Meet a lot of people that I like to associate with during, doing the nonprofit work that I do.
Yeah.
That's where I find people that I really enjoy being around. So yeah, for me, it's part social. Also, in the slow times, it's a great way to keep my mind off of the fact that the market's slow. So,
Yes, absolutely.
so it's kind of a duality of, that's why I keep my, you meet people, you get to know people. I've done
Yeah.
deals with many people that I've worked with in nonprofits because we have things in common together. And we have obviously an automatic kind of trust going on because we're interested in the same kind of thing. So,
So it's not like you're dividing your calendar in half. This is philanthropy and this is business. It's you've found a way to mesh the two.
yeah, well, kind of, sort of.
As good as you can.
It's like everything else. It's like I'm running a business and I'm running a nonprofit.
Yep.
And sometimes you do them simultaneously, sometimes you have more for one and less for the other. So you do what you do with with what time you have.
Make hay when the sun shines.
Exactly.
Fantastic. I want to gear things back towards real estate a little bit more again. You are a multi-year recipient of the five-star professional award. What does this award mean to you personally and professionally?
Well, that award is, well, first of all, let me explain. The only
Yeah.
reason I get that award is
Yep.
because my clients are sent a questionnaire. And unless my clients give me 5 stars, I don't get this. This
Yeah.
is,
So
basically,
this is an award
if
derived
they tell me
strictly from
I've only got
clients.
3 stars or 4 stars, I don't get it. So it
Yeah.
means a lot to me because it comes from my clients. It comes from my clients telling me I did a good job and that they felt comfortable enough to say that they were served in a fashion that they could give 5 stars to that service. So that's what it means to me is personally, that's,
Absolutely.
like I can get money for my commissions and whatnot, but
Yeah.
this fills my soul.
Well, for sure. I wasn't aware that it's an award strictly based off your client's point of view.
Yeah. 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 I don't even know who they're sending the surveys to. It's
Really?
all the company sends it out to whoever I've done business with
Yeah.
and then sends them a questionnaire. And anyhow, so it goes back to my servant heart. When I started out, I said I had a servant's heart. That's the core of my business. And when I get, my clients telling me I've given them 5 star service, I know I've reached my servant's heart's, quest, you might
Well,
say.
it's a different kind of award. I mean, everybody gets a production award or a top 50 under 50 or 30 under 30, or, you've hit this and now you're icon status. So there's so many different little awards or medals that you can get. But this one is strictly based off of your client's experience. And I
Right.
think that's very special. Are there any specific standards or principles that you follow to maintain this level of service? Because obviously you're delivering a pretty substantial, a pretty personal level of service for all of your clients to be raving a 5-star review.
Well, actually, I start every one of my first initial meetings starts with my 10 points of what I guarantee. But I will start with the number one guarantee, and that is
Yeah.
I always will tell the truth. And that to me, at the end of the day, is absolutely the most important. It's the most important for them to make the decisions that they need to make. And it's the most important for me to look in the mirror at the end of the day and say, I'm a good person. I did the right thing, you know?
For
So
sure.
telling the truth is very important. I'll also say that one of my major talents is I'm a problem solver.
Yeah.
And being a real estate agent, that's all you do is solve
Important.
problems. I have been a
Yeah.
problem solver my whole life, and it's never who caused the problem, it's how do you solve it? And so
Absolutely.
that's part of, like we could get into who made this mistake or who made that mistake, but that ain't going to get us from point A to point B. That's just what's going to get to point B and finish the problem and solve it. So,
For sure. Oh, absolutely. I think that's incredible. When it comes to client service, what do you think sets you apart from the other agents? What are you doing differently that allows you to rise to the top?
well, I have a method that I always return my phone calls within 24 hours.
That's a big one.
That's a huge one. People
Yeah.
want to know that you're going to get back to them. So that's part of it. The other part of it is just keeping touch along the way, making
Yeah.
sure that there are touch points along the whole transaction of you're going to know exactly what's happening. You're not going to be left in the dark. You're not going to be, did my offer get accepted, not get accepted? I'm going to, even if it hasn't been accepted or not, or accepted, I'm going to let you know, okay, well, this and this and this and this has happened, but we haven't heard XYZ yet. But at least you know that I've been working on your behalf. The other thing is follow up. I keep in touch with all of my clients. Every year, not only do they get a Christmas card, they get a present from me of some sort. I make sure that I keep in touch with them very dramatically during the holidays. But I send magazines out with my personal messages throughout the year.
Yep.
I make calls. And another one is a lot of them I end up after the transaction is done, I make them my Facebook friends. And this way I get to keep in touch with all of the different points in their life that they're doing really spectacular things. They're getting married, they're having kids, they're having grandkids, or whatever. I'm able to keep in touch with their life and make a touch point in their life when it's meaningful. So I'm not just like, hey, you want to buy or sell a home? I'm actually like making them a part of my life and trying to be there when they need me.
Yeah, I think that's important. It's cool to see. I mean, I've talked to so many agents, and the common trend that I've seen highlighted amongst the top 1% has been basically three things. It's been a high level of communication, it's been authenticity, and it's been trust. If you can nail those three things, you've got nothing to throw a stick at. You know what I mean?
Well, trust is the first. If you don't trust them, if they don't trust you, there's, all
There's
the
no such
rest
thing
of
as
you
a
can work
relationship
as
without
hard as
trust.
you want on everything else, and it's not going to happen.
Yep.
So, but trust is so important, which is why I say I go back to my number one is always telling the truth. Because
Yeah.
if I don't tell the truth, I'm not going to have any trust.
Well, for sure. And then exactly like you said, all a relationship is the level of trust.
Right.
What advice would you give to agents struggling to manage workload and service quality? I know many agents, they provide this incredible service. It's such a tailored event, but then they pick up 20 more clients. And then this person stops getting their follow-ups and this person stops. And then so it's how do you balance growing a business but maintaining that service quality?
It's about creating systems. It's got to be about creating systems. And I learned that from Joe Stump and by referral only early on, that there are times when you work in your business and there's times you work on your business. And
Yes.
it's two different things. So, the first things I do in the morning is, okay, what touch points do I have to work on? Like the first 2 hours of my day is what are the things that I got to do to make sure I'm touching my clients, past and present.
Yep.
Then the rest of the day, I work on what I got to do that day for, what problems I need to solve, what paperwork I need to get out, what carrier or service person I need to whatever. All of my other stuff is done during the rest of the day. But I have to make sure that I set aside that time every day to find out, should I send a card to somebody? Should I send a card of gratitude to somebody? Should I send hey, it was great seeing you? Or is there somebody I should have coffee with? But the first 2 hours of my day is focused on that.
And that's non-negotiable.
That's not negotiable.
Yeah, fantastic. I do the same. I'm not as strict as I would like to be because sometimes I allow myself to waver, but time blocking has been a big thing that I've introduced into my business as well. Because same deal, I'll sit down on a project and I will get hyper fixated on something, and next thing you know, I've spent 4 hours on this thing. Whereas I can now time block and say, well, I've only got this 1 hour to work on it because then I got to move on to the next thing.
Well, and it's also time shifting too. I mean, if I know I have a client that is predominantly going to be available in the evening, I'll make sure that, okay, well, I make time in the evening, but I take it away from my morning. I do something else in the morning. Or if I know I have an early riser, okay, so my 2 hours that I normally do first thing in the morning, I time shift it to the end of the day. But it's still there. I mean, the blocks are there. You just have to move the blocks of time around. That's all.
For sure, for sure. Let's talk a little bit about passion. I've talked to a lot of real estate agents over the past little bit, and a lot of them are tired. And I'm talking agents who have only been in the business 3 or 4 years. And now I understand the past 4 years have been pretty hard on a lot of agents, especially if you just started over the past, 4 years. It's been an uphill battle. But, I see a lot of agents who have been in the business 3 or 4 years and they're tired. They're exhausted. You've been in the real estate game for decades. How do you maintain your enthusiasm and passion for work?
I try to not do the things that are not productive. So
Elaborate.
I'll give you an example. I have a colleague, we'll both do the same open house, and I'll identify the 3 people that I really think are either a fit for that house or going to look for another house or they're a viable client. But we had 30 other people walk through that I didn't identify as being anything more than maybe a looky-loo,
Yep.
I make sure I call every 35 of them. I spend my time on the ones that I've identified that are viable to work with. And a
Yeah,
lot of agents are like, no, I'm going to call all 35.
for sure.
Now, I will send an email to all 35. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to just let that opportunity just go by the wayside,
Yeah,
but I give it the weight of my attention that it deserves.
for
And I
sure.
think so many agents are spending the same weight of attention on every bit of their business
Hmm.
that by the time they get to the one that's viable, they're exhausted.
Yep. No, absolutely. And I think well, I've told so many agents when you're first starting out, you don't necessarily have the luxury to say no to business. You first get in the game and you're gonna accept every listing or every buyer that comes to your doorstep. But I think after some time, you really start to realize that not every client is worth the same level of time that you've given some of these clients. And I've fallen victim of it myself, where I've taken on a listing just simply because it sounded like an awesome listing in a great neighborhood. The seller wasn't overly motivated to sell. They wanted to start at a high price, but I was eager to get after it. And then I spend, 6 or 9 months of my time trying to market this property and it never ends up selling. Now, had I had spent, 6 or 9 months, I could have probably sold 14 other properties in the meantime rather than spending all my time trying to sell this one, right? So it's really honing in on what clients are going to produce. Because at the end of the day, if you're not selling properties, you're not making money. And that just is what it is. So yes, you want to have 1 million clients in your back pocket, but you want to have at least 10% of those clients actually buying and selling homes.
At the same time, I'll take that example of that home that it's a little overpriced. It's not really selling. It's how you focus your energy. So you can focus all your energy trying to sell that one home. But if you know it's not going to work, you know what? Every time there's a listing, there's at least 4 or 5 other homes around it that's considering selling. So
Yep.
take that listing and use it to find the next one that will sell or that will, take that experience, say, you know what? I know that this one's not selling because it's overpriced, but if you came in the market today at this price, XYZ, I've
Yeah.
got the buyers lined up, ready to go. We can make this happen for you in a very quick fashion. Sometimes sellers like hearing that. And they're like, you don't care if or, well, I say like, if they're not going to come down in price and they see their neighbor then sell
Yeah.
at a price that should sell, now you have a much stronger argument to go back to the original owner and go, look, I told you this is the price it would sell at. Your neighbor sold at this. You're still sitting on the market. What do you do?
You seem like the kind of agent who's been served lemons many times and has made lemonade each and every time.
I am a stupid optimistic. That's very, I've tried very hard to be an optimistic and it's, yeah. But yes, yeah. No, I've just had a lot of experience. I mean, I was just talking to somebody the other day who was trying to hire an engineer for their engineering firm. And they said, no, I need someone with at least 20 or 30 years experience for this job. And I said, well, why do you need someone with that much experience? Won't some kid who's had a good education and about 10 years of experience have that same, you know, level of quality?
Yep.
And he said, no, unless you've actually gone through all of the issues and all of the scenarios that can come up and solve those problems, you don't have the experience. So now I can sit back in my 20 some odd years and go,
Yeah.
now I can solve things at my 20 years experience that someone with 5 has no clue as to how to even start looking at the solution. So
For sure. With so much experience behind you, what excites you most about the future of the industry? Big excited face.
um I'm not really sure. I'm not sure what, for me, the future is all about just people getting into a home that they want to be in, having that opportunity to grow their wealth, the equity
Yeah.
in their home, to give people that stability in their life that they really need to get to. So for me, the looking at a future, it's more on each individual basis. It's not like an overall future. I'm not really sure. I mean, I'll tell you that I'm at the age where I'd like to see some young agent that I'd like to mentor that would be excited
Yes.
about being mentored.
Yep.
And I'm not seeing it out there. So,
Keep
they're
looking.
like, oh, I'm gonna chase every internet lead that's out there. I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay, that's why you're exhausted, is you're chasing every internet lead that's wishy-washy out there rather than finding the ones that really want to do business. So
Well, you're gonna have an agent listen to this podcast and call you and say, I am your mentee. I am so
come
happy.
on,
Yeah.
go on.
As we near the end of this podcast, I always like to end things with a bit of a loaded question. Is there any one specific thing you wished you'd known at the start of your career?
Ah,
I know it's a little loaded, but
it is a little loaded. So I wish at the beginning of my career, I knew that I had to change the dance when the music changed. And I mean that by when I started my career, I started at a pretty robust market. We're having what we call liar loans. You have a pulse, you got a loan, no problem.
yeah,
But when that market changed drastically in 2008, 2009, I didn't have the experience to know, okay, everything that I'd been doing in the previous market is no longer going to work. You now got to change how you're going to find clients, how you're going to work with clients, etc. All that money you'd been spending on advertising, that's not where the focus is going to be. It's got to be a one-on-one personal situation. So
sure.
knowing ahead of time that you need to change when the music changes and change fast and not expect the same market you were in to continue to the next market, that's what I wished I'd known early in my career.
I think that's a really important takeaway. I think you said it best, where there's so many agents trying to just find a blanket that covers all the steps. You know what I mean? Find a one system that just gets their buyers from point A to point B. Whereas that's never the case. Every real estate experience is so tailored and so personal to each envelope, right? And so trying to find just one blanket statement that covers all your worries is non-existent.
Right. Right.
Cheryl, if I'm listening at home or I'm in the office at the gym, I'm stuck in traffic, and I wanted to learn more about you and the impact that you've had on the LA market, what would be the best way for people to connect with you?
I am super available. So either call me or text me is probably the best way to get a hold of me. 323-254-1350. I definitely answer my emails, and you could go to my website, which is hotlaneighborhoods.com. But yeah, I'm super accessible. Call me, text me, I will get back to you.
And she answers all of her texts within 24 hours.
Absolutely.
Cheryl, thanks again for joining us today on another extremely impactful show. Again, I'm your host, Trevor Bigg. Tune in next time for another exciting episode focused on delivering actionable advice delivered straight from the industry's top 1%. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Trevor.
Thanks for tuning in to Collaborate, where we're not just talking about success, we're building it. If you found value in today's episode, make sure to subscribe and never miss out on the insights that could take your real estate career to the next level. And remember, this is a space for the elite. If you're ready to level up and become part of a global network of top-performing agents, join us at the Global Group for exclusive tools, resources, and opportunities to collaborate with the best in the business. I'm Trevor Bigg, and remember, if you haven't been invited to this show yet, you need to grind harder, hustle smarter, and get those numbers up, because this is a space reserved for the elite.